Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at this. For those of you that don't want any time wasted at all, let's start with the TLDR of this video, and then you can leave. So here's the TLDR. Rear tire, get a V1 rear radial, 10, 15, 20 degrees. Front tire, get a V5, get a 30 degree, 25, maybe even 20. Now get out. Get out. Sign out of this video right now. I've saved you a whole bunch of time. Have they left yet? Okay, now this is for the real ones. This is for all of you that chose to stay to venture with me and really try and analyze this chart and see how much time, effort, and money am I willing to put into this to see if this is actually accurate. Now forgive the informal tone that I'm going to be taking in this video. It's going to be a little bit of a rant, but because I have received an increase in video requests, which by the way is amazing and I really appreciate all the feedback I'm getting, I am going to use this video to kind of test the waters out and try and pump out as much content as quickly as possible. So this is why I'm doing it in this sort of format, all right? This chart is showing us different types of tires. We're specifically going to focus on the Marka brand of tires. This is the more in-depth chart in relation to other brand charts. I actually don't even know if there are charts for the other brands, but this one I think a lot of us have seen, maybe a lot of us are just seeing for the first time, can apply this tool, right? Because it is a reference chart to help you with your racing. This is something that can be overwhelming for sure. I think there are even a lot of pros that have opened this chart up and immediately closed it, and they were like, no, I'd rather not read this. And that's okay. I don't blame you. If you didn't like reading in high school, you're probably not going to like reading this chart either. And if you do like reading, I'm sure there have been times that you've gotten to the bottom of a page in a book or a newspaper or something, looked up and said, well, I didn't retain any fucking thing I just read. And that's okay. But if you know that you're that person, do yourself a huge favor and screenshot this or print it out and tape it inside your toolbox so that you always know that you have it and you can use it as a reference, right? In standardized testing, I remember in school, science and math exams, it did feel like you were just kind of being thrown into a gymnasium, sitting at a desk with like hundreds of other kids and taking these really hard exams, but they did give you something. They gave you a reference table. And if you knew how to use the reference table, then in theory, you were able to complete a large portion of the questions on the exam. The same thing applies with this chart. If you know how to use the chart, then you can apply the knowledge that it's giving you into the racing that you're doing. And I guarantee you, you will notice some improvements and overall you'll just have a better time. So with all that said, let's get into it. Okay. If you notice my eyes continually darting down this way, it's because I have the chart pulled up on my monitor. So we're tackling this together right now, okay? So we have 7 columns that we should be focusing on here, and many, many rows. The rows in the largest column are labeled range of use. That is going to be an important column to pay attention to in terms of the track conditions. We start with compound V14, specifically our front tires, okay? Front tires from Marka have been a bit of a misunderstanding or misconception. Sometimes we'll just throw on a Marka front tire and it will be absolute dog shit. The reason for this is because it might not be actually the appropriate time or the appropriate track to use this front tire in. However, I can guarantee you that there is a Marka front tire out there that you can apply to whichever track or grip levels or temperatures, surface, whatever, that will suit it. The key thing you can do to weed out all of the uncertainty is to simply look for the words suitable or not suitable. And we know what this word means. I'm not trying to talk to you like you're a third grader, but some of us may still try to use a certain tire, find out it doesn't work, and if you looked at the chart, you would have found that you wasted your time gluing the set, wasting money on it, because actually it's not the right tire to use. We got to focus on track temperature. We also have to focus on grip level, the surface temperature of the track. We could try and do further experimentation and think about humidity levels or air temperature, but for this, we just want to focus on track temperature. They give us degrees in Celsius range from 10 to 40. Is 50 degrees Fahrenheit to 104 holy shit, 104. Okay, 50 degrees Fahrenheit to 104. Now, if your tires are in this window, well, hey, you can go ahead and use a V14 tire. But if the track is cold, the track is green, low grip, and cold, you might experience some issues with the V14 tire. So we're going to go ahead and put the V14s on the back burner for a while, because there's a lot to say about that tire, but not yet. Moving down the rows, we have more front tire compounds. There's V4, which I don't want to spend too much time on because V4s I feel like aren't really ever in stock anywhere. People don't really use them. It's either a V5 tire or a V14. So let's just go ahead and go straight to V5. V5 tires are suitable in all circumstances. You got the 8.5, the 11 millimeter, and they even have the F1 tires listed for you. Okay. The 8.5s or 11 millimeter tires in the front are suitable in all circumstances, and I'm telling you right now, you're probably only going to need 30, 25, or 20 degrees. Never have seen someone use a V5 15 or a V5 10. This is probably if you have a track that is some serious levels of high grip, and you need to go down to this level of tire because the car just keeps flipping no matter what. But we have not experienced anything like that here. It's going to be the safest tire to use. The wear of the tire will vary depending on grip levels and temperature, but for the most part, this is going to be your old reliable. Finally, we're getting into the rear tires. You got V1 and V5, but you also have 11 millimeter tires and 14 millimeter tires. Big thing for mod racers, us mod guys, is that we like using the widest tire possible. However, if you go to some tracks that are very low grip or low temperature, you will notice that the 14 millimeter tires simply won't hook up. They won't work. When the grip comes up and the temperatures come up, they do begin to work, but that's more of like a Saturday, Sunday kind of point in the race weekend, not a Thursday, Friday point, in my opinion. Something that is just, again, reliable, will work throughout the whole weekend is an 11 millimeter rear tire. It's just the safest option. For these, I highly recommend that you pick up a 20, 15, and 10 degree. The 10s do help when the grip gets extremely high. And the 15s are kind of your all-arounder, right? You can see them in a middle column. They are, if the grip is medium to low, you can still get them to work. If the grip gets higher, they'll still work. It's just that tire that kind of delves into like both lanes of track evolution, and you are going to be able to run consistent laps with the tire still. If you really want to push and the grip is still low, you will need a rear radial 20 degree tire. This I learned the hard way. For some reason, I thought I could make my race weekend work perfectly fine with 10 degrees rear radial on my mod cars, specifically my pan car, and boy was I wrong. I just kept losing the rear end. It would keep sliding out on corner exit. I couldn't apply power soon enough because the car would just give up in the rear. I was about to go in the opposite direction because I wasn't using the chart and I forgot like all the basic knowledge that was available to me. I was about to go to a 5 degree rear tire. And then I asked John what tires he was running in the rear of his pan car, and he told me 20. I was like, holy shit. I was off by twice the compound of my current tire. I go ahead, I quickly mount a pair of 20s on, And I'm like, oh my God, that made the world of a difference. The car I could actually drive confidently. I could push it through the corners. Call it the second sector of the track layout. There was it was a square. It was a series of 90-degree turns right before the loop. But if you got your line just right, you could kind of turn it into one big arcing turn. And with the 20-degree tires, I could lay on the throttle and turn that whole part of the track into one long, high-speed corner that would line you up perfectly going through the loop, and it would shave off 1 to 2 tenths of your lap times. If only I had known that sooner, I would have been able to have a better Q1 and Q2 run. As grip came up, I found myself going down 5 degrees to a 15-degree tire. But in that weekend, I never went back to that 10-degree tire. If I tried to remain stubborn and use what I thought I was always comfortable with, I would have had a terrible weekend. That 10-degree tire was just not hooking up. The track grip was not high enough. John didn't have to tell me what tires he was running. He could have lied to me too. He could have said, oh yeah, I'm using 10s. And I'm watching him as he's like absolutely dialed going around the course. And people might not always be honest though. So it helps to have this reference sheet with you so that you don't have to go scrambling around the pits asking for that information. All that I ask is that we do our due diligence, and if you do see someone struggling, ask them, hey, what rear tires are you using? Because that really did make the world of a difference. When it comes to the V5 rear tire, I've used this tire before, but I honestly don't remember if it was good or not. And I don't remember if the track was low temp or low grip, but I'll just say stick to V1 rear tires. It's the best tire out there, especially the 11 millimeter. Again, suitable in all circumstances. That's what's really going to make a huge difference. It's a very consistent thing that'll last you all weekend. So yeah, okay. Now we have some side notes on the bottom here that I think are really important to take a look at. We have this chart here and we can use as a reference, but it might help if we read these side notes on the bottom so we can better understand why we're picking this tire. What purpose is it for? For V1, we have a brief description of each compound. The compound V1 is the Marka rear tire with the best performance. Not suitable though for low temperature, under 10 degrees Celsius, under 50 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't think we ever really get under those temps unless maybe you're running in your attic in the wintertime and it's extremely cold, or in a damp, dark garage, but it is something to keep in mind. For the V4 tire, no, we don't care about the V4. For the V5 tire, the compound is used for both front and rear tires. At the front, it can work in all temperature conditions, offering excellent grip with medium resistance to abrasion. At the rear, it offers its best performance when the temperatures are low, below 15 degrees Celsius. I did not look up the conversion for that, but I would assume it's somewhere around 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And then finally, we have our wonderful V14 tires. The compound V14 is the front tire that works well in medium and high temperatures. It also has excellent resistance to abrasion and therefore a long life, easy to use. Listen, I have run into a bit of disagreement here with this statement. I do not think the V14s are impervious to tire wear. I think actually it's quite the opposite. These tires, the majority of the time, wear very quickly. I think it depends on where you are racing. For example, there are only 2 times that I can think of in all of my racing and all my use of Marka front tires, specifically this V14 compound, where the tire wear was not quick at all. It was very low tire wear. The tires lasted an extremely long time. It was just last weekend here in Columbus, Ohio for the first SRA Grand Prix, and over a year ago in Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, the similarities between these 2 locations, these 2 tracks, is that they both started very green, very low grip. I think a lot of drivers that went to these events can attest to this. The track grip started very low, And by the end of the weekend, it wasn't necessarily the highest grip track. It was probably more of like a medium grip track, but it never really stayed in like a high grip window or even a medium grip window. And a lot of the times we were dealing with low grip cornering. And that's honestly when the tire was the best in terms of wear. My tires that I used for my all-wheel drive in the front, I used a V14 15-degree tire. This is what I almost always run. And I brought multiple sets of that front tire, expecting to constantly change my fronts. Ironically enough, I was changing tires more so on my two-wheel drive car than the fronts on my four-wheel. Matter of fact, the tires that I used in all three of my mains, actually we scrapped the last main. So I'll say in 2 out of the 3 of my qualifiers and in 2 mains, I used the same set of tires that I used in my practice laps on Thursday. I used 1 set of tires essentially the whole weekend, hundreds of laps run, and barely any tire wear. Now, of course, if I were to take this same setup to Park Lane, they would have like blown out after like 2 runs and then I'd have to change the tire. So it's different everywhere, but I will say low grip circumstances, lower temperatures maybe, this tire has phenomenal wear. It's also great to use. And I mean, you'll be saving money that way because you won't be going through sets and sets of this tire. That's the main thing I wanted to highlight. The V14s are a wonderful tire when the temperature is just right, being the track temperature, and the track is at pretty low grip. They'll still work in higher grip conditions, but that is when the abrasion or the tire wear increases. With all that said, I think we have done an okay job at tackling this chart, and I'm sure now we can all confidently say we know which tire we're going to use and when we should use it, and that's pretty much it. You gotta be fucking kidding me.